From now until next Wednesday, Code Espresso gets you 30% off your entire order at gfuel.com. So whether or not you want to check out a new flavor, grab a restock, or just want to try it out for the first time, be sure to use Code Espresso for 30% off your order. Link in the description below. I sometimes mention it like lightheartedly, that it's not really something that bothers me, but it's kind of just a passing joke. But seriously, every single update in Black Ops 4 has that one drawback that's really just like, what are you doing? Or better yet, what were you thinking? The sad part is that when I schedule my videos, which I often do in bulk, like 2 weeks at a time, so I have a clearer vision on my day-to-day work when creating content instead of just being like, well, I got no idea what I'm doing today. The sad part is that I can honestly now tentatively schedule a what is this kind of garbage video topic after every single update, because it's been that way without fail for months now. It's been that every major title update has some really cool shit in it. Like really cool for the most part. And I'll be totally honest, yesterday's, the rewards for things like contracts may not entirely be what I want, but it's a reason for me to get on and play the game again daily, and I'm totally cool with that. I like the contracts were finally added in. I definitely think it was something that should have been in the game since launch, but I'll take it for what it is. But it's just sad that I can kind of mentally prepare myself now to be disappointed no matter how awesome an update can be, and this update was no exception, especially because it hit home for me in my favorite mode of Blackout. Now, I've mentioned it before, but I love Blackout for a lot of reasons, but one of the main ones being that it's, to me, a level ground for no BS, or at least less BS compared to the traditional multiplayer within Black Ops 4 this year. As I'm sure a lot of you guys are aware, there's a lot of cheese in MP this year, and the big one for me is the specialist system was changed from where it was in Black Ops 3, and what I think was honestly a balanced system back then of you had either a lethal or a tactical ability, but never both. But in Black Ops 4, now you have both in multiple times a game. You end up having things like your Seeker shock drones, dogs, Zero's ice pick, and all that kind of stuff and more is just cheesy to me. I don't think a lot of the times the better player wins gunfights, and for various reasons, and without taking too much time from the topic at hand, I think that Blackout is just a much more level ground, and that's why I play it so much. Everyone drops in with the same loadout. Absolutely nothing. Everyone has that ability to use the near open world to their advantage, and everyone has pretty much the same chances for success at the start, and the rest comes down to the players and their ability to adapt and utilize the tools to their advantage. But yesterday that changed a little bit. It's no surprise that the recent Days of Summer event kicked off to, well, less than ideal situations, as that drawback that we came to expect now was in the way of a bombshell that put some of the best new weaponry that we've seen added into the game behind RNG chance walls of reserves, in the way of such that you had a core of 4 and a 1,100 plus item chance of getting what you wanted. Now, I say some of the best new weaponry because of the DLC weapons it's the best. Sure, there are still things that can counter the Peacekeeper and things like that, but at its core, they definitely are weapons that can make a difference in how the game plays out. But that's a 0.3% chance of getting a weapon. With your one weapon bribe in tiers, that's bumped up to, at the core chance, an 8% chance across the Mark II weapons in reserves plus those DLC weapons. So sure, you can account for that you have weapons and duplicate rerolls every 3 items, but at the same time, it doesn't improve your odds nearly at all. You have an immediate nearly 50-50 chance of rolling something you already have, plus those odds of the 4 weapons over the course of 1,100 plus items in reserves. Simply put, you're mad lucky if you got a weapon out of reserves, and there's no way around that. Simply because you have 1, 2, 3, or hell, even all 4 does not mean that it's easy to get those weapons. You're simply an outlier to the general populace, so enjoy that fact because many others cannot. But with Blackout, these weapons weren't added in at all, which was curious because we had things like the Nefo Odie and the Tiger Shark missing even from Spectre Rising. If you remember back, the SWAT and the Daemon, the first weapons added into Black Ops 4 were actually in Blackout the day before they debuted in multiplayer. In Grand Heist, the Switchblade and Rampage were added shortly thereafter. So to not see the Nefo Odie or the Tiger Shark even after their designated time frame of their operation was weird and put up a red flag. And same thing goes with even those new weapons of the Peacekeeper, Locust, Ballistic Knife, and S6 Stingray. Those things that were added in, they weren't in Blackout whenever they launched. So yesterday we got a new feature called Blackjack Stashes, which we detailed a little bit in full yesterday, but for a breakdown for those that may have missed it, it is something that it's kind of like a weapon locker, but it has every single weapon from the black market or from the contraband streams previously, all in one location. As it stands right now, I do think it is kind of bugged, but the designated thing that it was meant to be was that you can enter into one of these each game. Once you do, you have the option to pick up right there any DLC weapon that you have on your account, whether that be the SWAT and the Daemon from Absolute Zero, the Tiger Shark from Spectre Rising, the Switchblade or the Rampage from Grand Heist, whether that be the melee weapons you got along the way at any point. Even things like the brand new sword that was introduced last week or the week before that in the shop, can't remember off the top of my head, even those are added in here with this. So it adds every single DLC weapon in one communal place for you to pick up and you're guaranteed to get. That doesn't mean like things like the SWAT and the Daemon are no longer on the ground, and that the Rampage and the Switchblade are not in armory stashes. They're just instead also added to this along with the other weapons that are not found anywhere else. So this was added in and players can pick up those if they end up finding a Blackjack stash. It is something that only one can be used in solos. Again, I don't know if it's entirely bugged. My squad ended up getting into it, all of us, and being able to pick up the weapons that we wanted, but it is something that if somebody uses that, it should lock up, assuming there's no bugs with it. But let's put it into perspective, because after this was added, how does this play out? Before, I'd say that the setups that were the best in Blackout, let's start out with the regular Blackout map. Personally, I think it'd be the Rampart or the KN and a Paladin, a long range covered with that sniper, and then a medium to close range with that rifle, both of which have the best damage outputs and best mobility in the way of, at least in my opinion, the KN. As for Alcatraz, I'd say recommending the KN or the MP40, or if you want to go real close quarters combat, you could end up having the MP40 and a shotgun with fast mags on, say, like the MOG. But the thing is, it's all on even playing grounds because no one is guaranteed those weapons. You may see that setup of the KN or the Paladin on the channel a lot, but that's because I play an absolute ass ton of Blackout. So you're seeing the highlights of the best loadouts that I've come in contact with. But you introduce these new weapons which statistically are better, and I'll be totally honest with you, things like the Peacekeeper and the Vendetta are the best 1-2 punch combo right now, having played a ton of Alcatraz and finding these stashes a ton. I'll attest to that 100%. The downside to that loadout, of course, is that they both take 5.56 ammo, so you'll need to replenish a lot or be conscious of what you have left, but there's literally zero recoil on the Peacekeeper, and it's got a moderately fast fire rate and a solid damage, and is overall a laser pointer. The Vendetta, it's literally a one-shot to the head, no questions asked. These guns are better performing than those in the regular world spawns, and only some people have access to them. Not to mention, if you find one of those stashes, which in Alcatraz in particular, they're honestly pretty common, you're guaranteed those best loadouts in the game. You're set from spawn with that best rifle and best sniper combo in the case of what, again, I like to consider that Peacekeeper and Vendetta, or literally any other weapon that you want. It removes the very basis of what the game is built on, a level playing field and the RNG of Battle Royale. And I do know, yes, it sounds weird to say that RNG is good when we talk about supply drops and how bullshit RNG is, but when it comes to starting with nothing and everyone using the tools they have every game, not lifetime on an account, it's two very distinct and very different scenarios. So the problem is, very bluntly, players who have either been lucky or paid their way to getting those weapons have a definitive advantage over someone who does not. Thank God for my squad having the better luck than I with drops, because we can drop weapons for each other from time to time when we find these. But for someone who has all the weapons compared to someone else, the starting point is in no way, shape, or form the same. They're on two completely different platforms. And that's where the problem is. Personally, I don't understand why this was done in the first place. What damage does it do, truly, to have the ability to play 10 to 15 minutes at max with a weapon exclusive in reserves in a mode that, at the end of the match, it means nothing? You placed first, you placed second, you placed 27th. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. 10 to 15 minutes of a trial period with a weapon that others have on their account for the rest of their lifetime. Why is it such a problem to put this in as a world spawn or something in regular stashes? You have a minimal chance as is of finding DLC weapons like the Rampage and the Switchblade in Blackout, so why add this in the first place like it is? Why not just introduce it like we've seen before? Why change a system that truly worked just fine? How it was before was this. In Absolute Zero, the weapons of the Daemon and the SWAT were actually added in and still are there as ground spawns. The other weapons, such as the Rampage, the Switchblade, the Cap 45, and the melee weapons, are all either in stashes or armory stashes of the smaller boxes. Why not introduce them the same way? If it's not broken, don't fix it, or in this case, don't break it. To me, it only comes down to one logical explanation here with this, which is a bullshit one, to be honest with you, and we're probably all thinking it. Black Ops 4's MTX system. Black Ops 4 is definitely the most MTX-ridden game of the franchise. There is zero doubt about that in my mind. Black Ops 3 was that title that held that crown, but even halfway through the year, I feel like Black Ops 4 had already topped that. Maybe not even necessarily with the contents added just yet, though it's probably close, but instead in the way of just the incessant push to buying things in a game that you already paid $60+ for. You already bought access to the game, and you're being pushed to buy even more and even more and even more. If you're a Blackout player, this hardcore funnels attention to reserves. It hardcore funnels the idea of, damn, maybe I should buy that bundle in those reserve crates to get more than 1 or 2 chances every hour. Instead, maybe I'll get that 15 chances in that 2 minutes that it takes to buy this item. And that subliminally pushes an addictive process that fuels our instinctive human nature of we want it now and the instant gratification that comes along with it by completely elongating or almost entirely removing the chance of getting things organically. Yeah, you could get a weapon for hours and hours and hours and hours of playtime, but it's never a good odd. Revisiting that number of 4 items out of a 1,100 plus item loot pool, that's a 0.3% chance of getting the item you want. And guess what? You only get one of that 0.3% chance every hour. Or I guess 2 if you end up getting past tier 50. By removing that even small chance of getting to play with those weapons by finding them on the ground in Blackout for even just a few minutes, it forces an attention to reserves, which funnels directly into a terribly tedious system for players who don't want to spend a penny, but instead offers that serious fast tracking via paid options. It's like an upside down pyramid, or I guess a funnel, but I don't really want to overuse that word. I've already mentioned it a couple of times here in the last couple of sentences, where you're at the top, you're the consumer. But as you navigate towards the content that you want at the bottom, you have a decreasing opportunity to get what you want without paying with each step that you take. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So this was a clear and blatant bullshit move in my opinion. There was absolutely no reason to add this in the way that was added outside of using that invisible hand to force more sales. It's not explicitly there, but it guides you in that direction even further. That, well, I want to use this in Blackout too, but I don't have it on my account. So I could either go and grind hours and hours and hours and hours, or maybe I just buy a couple of drops, which is bullshit. So while Blackout itself probably can't be the decision maker, it comes at the top down still that something needs to change. This is just the latest in a long line of monetary fuck-ups that this game has not only done to hurt the title, but also the franchise and the player base. Honestly, I still can't believe that the suits that make these decisions at the top truly don't know what's good for their franchise because of the lack of willingness to take a risk that Call of Duty grew off of. Call of Duty, let's be honest, grew off of risk. Modern Warfare differentiated itself from the pack in 2007 and blew up by taking controversial stances in some areas and addictive gameplay, plus changing the entire formula that Call of Duty at that time was built off of, that being World War II. The game was great and at the time took risks to help elevate that. Black Ops, the franchise started out, took risks with its introduction while offering items and new ways to play the game. The classics were entirely built on leaps of faith and doing what studios wanted to make the best game for the players. And with a changing industry, Call of Duty will not make that jump so long as those at the top of Activision don't see, wow, our model actually is outdated. It isn't working, and the way to salvage our revenues isn't to push more of what people don't want. That's the thing that I don't understand, is that if sales are down, why continue to push things that people don't want in the first place? That's only going to alienate the player base and the consumers. If they don't want to buy it in the first place, they're not going to buy it whenever you push it a second time. The one thing that I ended up seeing recently was about stock prices and Activision and Blizzard stock prices. And if you take a look at the yearly value of Activision stocks and shares, there's definitely that clear divide that once October hit, everything went downhill. It's relatively steady the past couple of months, but it's still about 40% lower than where it was in October, which is absolutely insane because it's that one thing that Activision and Blizzard should be taking a look at, because those shareholders are ultimately the only ones that they're truly beholden to. And that is another thing that doesn't make any sense to me, because with a model that's outdated, that isn't generating revenues that you want in a manner that is presented in a way that is a heavy way to push more microtransactions, if it's not working, why don't they change it? And why do they keep doing these stupid things? So while I've gotten a little bit off topic, I do apologize. The thing with Blackout, these stashes, just not the way to implement these weapons, not the way that players should be able to experience Blackout. And again, if you're somebody jumping on that is trying out Blackout for the first time and somebody has these weapons, you are at a completely different level at that start, which is, again, the entire basis of what Blackout is built upon, starting with nothing and making your way to something. So that's it. That's where I'm going to wrap it up. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about this here at this. And while it is something that, sure, it hasn't directly affected me all that much because I've been playing with squads that have some of these weapons. And so ultimately we can end up cumulatively taking advantage of this. At its core, this was the dumbest thing I think that could have happened with this update, or at least in the way of Blackout. I'm sure that I could think of many, many more things that would frustrate me even more. But this, thinking about the common player, it's the dumbest thing, man. I don't understand. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new and want to stay up to date with all things Black Ops 4 and all things Call of Duty news, updates, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered the best of all of that. So if you're interested in any of it, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And of course, if you want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, there's the best place to get content about that on YouTube. I can live on both those. So if you guys want to check out the conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. But for now, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.